Hello. My vlogging has fallen off a little bit because I've been doing things, including this art installation dream space that I did last weekend for a party. And I'm really happy with it because now this room feels a lot more like my space. I'll show you. It's like this canopy of sorts, where we basically created this dream immersive experience and ritual where you were like blindfolded and then you brought in and you had to bring a dream to get in. And then once you got in, we took the dream or visual symbol. So like people would draw different things. And based off of that, we would create a sensory, imaginal, somatic experience for them. And we fed them like little bits of fruit. It was like a fruit dessert experience. And then there was like scents and like sounds, and I had decorated my room with like these candles, and I had this little like noise maker and whatnot. And now this whole space feels a lot more like it works for me. And yeah, after the experience, they could hang up their dream like in this collective dream space. And I think what I'll do is I will like take everything and transcribe it with AI into like a community collective dream and see what it comes up with. Yeah, and I feel really good about that. It feels like I definitely want to do more things like this, and this felt very successful. And it can be hard to pull off an experience. Sometimes it just doesn't read, same with like films. So to have one go well, and to be like fully appreciated and seen for that felt really meaningful for me. Yeah. I don't have much more to say. I guess I want to like talk about this art project that I made. And this feels like another rep or another variation of these other experimental art parties that I have been throwing since 2 years ago. The first one was like for my 28th birthday, and I like wanted it to be around like the theme of like flourishing. So this one was around like dreams, but in the past it was around like flourishing, and it was inspired by the happenings movement from the 1950s. And back then there would be these very temporary gatherings where people come in, and it was like this very sensory experience. There's like, you walk in and there's like fruit like hanging from the ceiling, and someone hands you a piece of fruit that you can bite, and then there's like roasted banana slices like in some loft space that you have to like climb up to get. And like the food one is the standard, but I think there were other happenings that revolved around like very like psycho magic-y, but like there's like a room full of like big tires and you have to like crawl over all the tires. And yeah, I was very inspired by the happenings movement. I was inspired by like Marina Abramovic and performance art and her pieces around like exploring relationships. There's like, and also like audience participation. So like there's one where she is holding an arrow and leaning back, and Ulav, her partner, is holding the bow, and they have to trust that neither of them will let go, because if you let go, then she gets shot through the heart with the arrow. Or there's one like the Rhythm Zero where she's standing in front of this desk, and on the desk are all of these artifacts, like including like rose and a gun and like other things, and she just invited the audience to do whatever they wanted to her. And it actually got very dangerous, and they had to call it off because it turns out they will just like hurt you and harm you. And but yeah, I love this space. And then I'm also inspired by Psycho Magic by Jodorowsky, where he talks about like creating, I have another video about Psycho Magic, but like creating your own ritual or like your own act of psycho magic, and that the key is to imbue meaning into an object, and then to from that, like you can speak more directly to your subconscious instead of through like talking. For example, instead of talking about your relationship to money, what if you like laid in a bed of money? Like this way of communicating through like visuals and symbols and archetypes that seem to work better with your dreaming mind. And then I was also feeling like tired of the usual parties. Like I liked parties as like a act of collective performance art, and also having parties that were like encouraged richer conversation and more collective like creation, and like musical jamming and inviting in like surreal moments. So yeah, and I felt like art museums were kind of sterile and boring, and artist studios were more alive. And I wanted to create this sense of like, oh, it's like a party, but like there's a little more intention to it, and it's not so like formal as a museum, and there's more aliveness than just like a conversational salon, but like everything all together, and how can we like bring it all into one space. So that was my first party. I also did like a ritual. So you walk into the party, and there was like it was around like the theme of like flourishing and life and death, and I had all these on-ramps. Like there was like references to other art installations in the past. So we had this chair. If you sat in the chair, there's like this journal, and it invited you to partake in the history of the chair and all of the previous occupants that had sat in the chair. There was like a big group mural. We had like a flower chandelier, and a musical jamming station. And then there was like this death ritual portion where I like brought people one by one into a room and laid them down and covered them with like a sheet of like a bed sheet. And so you actually felt, they looked, and I think like it feels like you're quite dead, and they look kind of dead. It's like a body covered in a sheet, and there's like incense and like low throbbing music. And I before they go in, it's like, oh, is there something you want to take with you into this kind of like an afterlife? And then they took these things with them, and then we laid them down and covered them with the sheet. And then I think I dripped some water and some placed like embellishments on them with like flower petals, and then incense, and read a poem. And I led them into this thought experiment where it was like, you've just died, you're now in the afterlife, you're at a dinner party with all the different variations of yourself, and like you look around the dinner table, who do you want to talk to, who do you want to avoid? And I invited them to sort of explore that, and I left them alone for 3 minutes. Then I came back, brought them back up, and gave them a piece of fruit. And so that's like them coming back from this thought experiment, and then they rejoined the party with like all their friends and the music and the dancing. So that was like my 28th birthday. And then I had like I had a much bigger party in SF that I didn't love as much, but it was based on the theme of, it was inspired by the book Impro by Keith Johnstone, and it explored the theme of like mask play. So everyone was wearing masks, and actually the reason why it didn't work well is because people didn't want to wear the masks, so it didn't. But my vision was that like everyone would wear masks throughout the whole party, and it was like these big boxy masks, and like you would allow the mask to possess you and bring you into a trance. And there were like these platforms that I made for like dancing on the platforms and letting the mask embody you. And there is also like an IFS meditation and collective story writing and a zine. And yeah, I think it was a big mishmash kind of party, and that seems to be sort of the way that these tend to be for me. After that, I took a big break because I was a little bit traumatized from the bigger impro party not going as I wanted. Then I threw a happening with my friends in LA, and that one involved the blindfolding. They came in, they were blindfolded, then we brought them into this space, and that one was around, it was like a letting go ritual, and people sat around this like big metal grating with an ice sculpture over a hot plate, and like we took 3 rounds of like sharing things about, it was like a non-verbal round, then like a somatic round, a verbal round of sharing what you're letting go of, and you like pour this like shot of soju over the ice sculpture, and as it drips onto the hot plate goes like psst, and it was very cool. And people got to like a really vulnerable space, and then after we had a big feast, and that one went really well. And I think part of why it went so well was like all the choreography around it, and I think I learned from that this framework works well. And then after that, I threw another birthday party where it was I turned 30, and it was like honoring my 20s. And so that one involved everyone making a collective, like you got, there were all these flowers and artifacts and like vessels, glass vessels. And I invited everyone to sort of, this one was too big for everyone to go around, and I kind of regret it, but it was like, you can make your own little altar or like artifact to symbolize like some of your cherished parts of your 20s, and you imbue it with meaning, and that's like the important thing. And then you could share if you wanted something to speak to like your 20s and what you wanted to like, yeah, just what you wanted either to let go or to like honor or whatever, something to encapsulate this experience. And then we put it up on this collective altar space, and it was beautiful. Like, it was beautiful because it was on the rooftop of this this house in Topanga Valley, and there was like the stars out, and you could see all the flowers in the glass. And by now, because I've done various like iterations, I know that my personal like visual language, I gravitate towards like flowers, glass, water, wood, charcoal, and rocks, stones. And so like my friend who did the other happening gravitated towards like metal, and ice and like concrete. So it's cool to see like what you gravitate towards. And like now that I've made my space, I'm like, oh, this feels like me, and this is like my material language, which feels extremely gratifying to have for some reason. But yeah, I think this is like another iteration of that, and yeah, just really happy with how it went. So see you guys. Thanks for listening.